Special. At dinner with my parents, she said, "Your son's sweet, but I'm still exploring my options." While holding my hand, I let go, stood up, and said, "We should go," while my parents watched her in shock, drove her home without a word. While she was trying to explain at her door, I said, "You're free to explore now," and left. Hey viewers, before we continue, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want more stories like this. Thanks. The dashboard clock glowed 6:58 p.m. 2 minutes early. I adjusted the bottle of Chardonnay on the passenger seat, Mom's favorite, and glanced at Chloe. She was scrolling, the blue light from her phone casting sharp angles across her face. A thumbnail flickered a video of some comedian. "You ready?" I asked, my voice too loud in the quiet car. "Yeah, totally," she said without looking up. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Just let me finish this." I watched her for a moment. She'd been quiet, distracted all week. "Sakwo, when I had asked about it yesterday, she waved it off. Just work stuff, Mark. You know how it is." I believed her. I always believed her. I'd spent the afternoon cleaning my apartment, picturing a version of tonight where, after dessert, I'd bring up the idea for moving in. I had the logic ready. My place was bigger, closer to her job. It made financial sense. I'd even practiced the speech in the shower. It's the next logical step, Dotto. "Okay, let's go," she said finally, dropping her phone into her purse with a sigh. She offered me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The walk to the front door felt normal. My childhood home smelled the same as always: lemony polish, slow-cooked roast, and the faint, comforting scent of old books. My mom, Linda, pulled me into a hug, then held Chloe at arm's length. "You look beautiful, sweetheart. That color is fantastic on you." "Thanks, Linda," Chloe said, her social charm clicking on as she handed over the wine. "For you, my dad, Robert." Special came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He gave me a firm handshake, and Chloe a warm one-arm squeeze. "The maestro is almost finished. Have a seat, you two." We settled into the living room. The good glasses were out. Sinatra played softly from the old stereo. It was a scene straight out of my dreams of a stable future. Chloe sat close beside me on the sofa, her leg pressed against mine. I felt my earlier anxiety ease. See? Everything was fine. Dinner was my dad's famous pot roast carrots and potatoes cooked to buttery perfection. The conversation flowed easily, a gentle back and forth. Dad asked about the new software rollout at my firm. Mom asked Chloe about the big charity gala she was planning. "It's going to be incredible," Chloe said, her hands moving as she spoke. "We've got a silent auction item, a weekend ski trip to Aspen. I'm this close to stealing it for myself." She laughed, and my parents laughed with her. She was radiant, the center of gravity at the special table. I just watched, content to orbit her. Then my mom poured more wine and asked the question, the one I'd been hoping for. "So, you too," she began, her voice warm with curiosity. "We don't like to pry, but any big plans on the horizon? You seem so wonderfully settled." It was my opening. My heart skipped. I felt Chloe's hand find mine under the table. Her fingers were cool. I took it as a sign, a squeeze of support. I opened my mouth to deliver my rehearsed, logical speech, but Chloe spoke first. She leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on a confidential, almost reflective tone. "You know, Linda, that's such a great question." She paused, looking from my mom to my dad, then down at our joined hands on the tablecloth. She gave my hand a small, patronizing pat. "He's the sweetest man I've ever known. Truly. So kind, so stable," she said, the word stable landing like a diagnosis. "He's like a perfect, cozy fireplace." A cold sensation crept through my stomach. She, special, continued, her gaze drifting toward the window, as if something more exciting waited beyond it. "But I'm just at a point in my life where I need to be sure about everything. I'm youngish," she added with a light, tinkling laugh that felt like shattering glass. "I feel like I owe it to myself to keep exploring my options." She looked back at my parents. "You understand, right?" The world didn't shatter. It didn't go dark. It's sharp and crisp, precise in its cruelty. I noticed the speck of paprika on the tablecloth near my plate. I saw my mother's smile falter, slowly collapsing. I saw my father's fork freeze halfway to his mouth. I felt the weight of Chloe's hand on mine, heavy, lifeless, exploring my options. The words lingered in the air, mixing with the scent of roast and gravy. She had just told my parents, the two people who loved me most, that their son was a temporary placeholder, a nice, cozy fireplace, while she searched for something wilder, more. A deep silence filled the room. The only sound was the faint sway of "Fly Me to the Moon" drifting in from the living room. I stared at her hand. Her slim, manicured fingers rested over my broader, work-worn ones, a public display of affection that, in that moment, felt like the most violent act of disrespect I had ever experienced. Calmly, without a word, I slid my hand out from under hers. The scrape of my chair legs against the hardwood floor cracked through the silence like a gunshot. I stood. My movements were mechanical, precise. I looked at my parents. My mother's eyes were wide, glistening. My father's face was a rigid mask, his jaw clenched. "We should go," I said. My voice was flat, unfamiliar even to me. No anger, no tremor, just a simple statement of fact. I walked around the table and pulled out Chloe's chair. She looked up at me, her confidence finally fracturing into confusion. "Mark, what do you wear leaving?" I repeated, not looking at her. I met my father's eyes. He gave the slightest nod, barely perceptible but clear. Understanding, a quiet transfer of dignity. I helped Chloe to her feet. She was flustered now, silent. I picked up her purse from the sideboard. I didn't look at my mother. I couldn't. "Thank you for dinner," I said to the space between them. It was excellent. Then I led the ghost of my relationship out of my parents' house, leaving the ruins of the future I'd imagined cooling on the dining room table. The cold night air hit us like a slap. Chloe found her voice. "Mark, stop. What was that? You're being ridiculous." I didn't respond. I unlocked the car, got into the driver's seat, and started the engine. She lingered outside for a moment before yanking the passenger door open and sliding in. "Are you serious right now?" she demanded, her confusion quickly turning to anger. "You just dragged me out of there because of one little comment." I pulled out of the driveway. The neighborhood streets were dark and quiet. "It wasn't a little comment, Chloe," I said, eyes fixed on the road. My voice remained that same unsettling monotone. "Oh my God, you are so sensitive," she snapped, throwing her hands up. "I was just being honest with them. I was being real. Isn't that what you always say you want?" "Honesty," I repeated. Not a question, just a word. It tasted like ash. "Yes, honesty. I was telling them the truth. I love you, Mark. You know I do. But love isn't always enough. There's a whole world out there. I have needs. I have curiosities. Is it a crime to want to be sure?" I signaled a turn. The steady click of the blinker filled the silence. "So I'm an experiment," I said. Not an accusation. A conclusion. "No, don't twist my words. You're my foundation. But even foundations need to be inspected, right? To make sure they can handle what's being built on them." The metaphor was so deeply self-serving it nearly broke through my numbness. Almost. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "You humiliated me," I said quietly. "In front of my parents. You reduced 2 years of my life to a trial run." "I did not. You're catastrophizing. They adore me. They understood what I meant. You're choosing to be hurt because you're scared of anything that isn't your perfectly planned little life." The floodgates opened. For 20 minutes, she unraveled her words, a spinning vortex of justification, self-pity, and veiled insults disguised as concern. "You're taking this the wrong way. I just need to grow as a person, and you're so content. It's not you, it's me wanting to experience more before I settle. Can't you see this is healthy? This is modern dating. You're so sweet, Mark. But sweetness can be passive." I drove. I didn't look at her. I didn't interrupt. I let it all pass over me, each word settling, hardening the ice in my chest. This was who she was. It had always been who she was. I had just been too comfortable by the fireplace to notice the draft. We reached her special apartment building. I pulled into a visitor spot and shifted the car into park. The engine idled. Silence returned, heavier now, saturated with everything she'd said. She looked at me, waiting for a response. A fight, tears, begging, something she could shape, twist, or control. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stepped out. I walked around the car and opened her door, one final, automatic act of courtesy. She stepped out, searching my face. "Mark, talk to me, please." I looked at her, really looked at her. At the girl I had imagined building that logical future with. I felt nothing, no love, no anger, just a vast, empty clarity. She stepped toward me, reaching for my arm. I took a deliberate step back, out of her reach. Her eyes widened. That was the first thing that truly unsettled her, my calm, intentional withdrawal. I met her gaze. My voice was quiet, final, and completely devoid of emotion. "You're free to explore now." I turned, got back into my car, and shut the door. In the rearview, special mirror, I saw her standing on the curb, frozen, one hand still slightly outstretched. I didn't wait to see if she moved. I drove away. With every block, the weight in the car lifted until it was just me, the road, and a silence no longer filled with her excuses, but with a deep, growing peace. The silence in my apartment felt different now. Before, it had been passive, a space waiting to be filled with the sound of her key in the lock, her laughter, her critiques of my movie choices. Now it was active. It was mine. I didn't break down. I didn't throw anything. I stood in the middle of the living room, the same room where I'd imagined us discussing floor plans, and I just breathed. The numbness was a cocoon. Inside it, something quiet and decisive was stitching itself back together. My phone buzzed on the counter. Mom. I picked it up. Mark, honey, are you? I'm okay, Mom, I said gently, cutting her off. My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. It's over. A pause filled with a silent anguish. What she said at my table, I know, I said. Don't, please. I just need to not talk about it right now. Okay, she whispered. Okay. We're here. I hung up. The next step felt instinctive. Surgical. I opened my phone and navigated to her contact. A photo of her laughing at the beach, a moment I now understood was just a scene in her ongoing exploration. I blocked her number. Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, every digital tether, blocked. Unfollowed. It took less than 3 minutes. I wasn't angry. I was clearing contamination from a space. The first night, I slept like the dead. The second, I woke at 3 a.m., her words in my parents' dining room replaying in a cold, clear loop. Not with pain, but with sharp, analytical clarity. Exploring my options. I saw my father's frozen fork, my mother's broken smile. I let the humiliation move through me. I didn't resist it. I observed it, like a scientist examining a toxic sample. And as dawn filtered gray through, it's done. The sample was recorded. The feeling was spent. I didn't call in sick to work. I went in. I coded. I attended meetings. I ate lunch at my desk. The world kept moving. My hands knew the keyboard. My logic still worked. That was a relief. The real work began after 5 p.m. I joined a gym, not the casual one I'd used before, but a serious, no-nonsense place with heavy bags and free weights. I didn't know what I was doing. I hired a trainer for 3 sessions just to learn proper form. The first time I deadlifted a weight that felt impossible, my muscles burning. Vision blurring, I thought of her patting my hand. Sweet. Stable. I locked out the lift. The crash of the plates hitting the floor was the most satisfying sound I'd heard in years. I texted my friends to let them know Chloe and I were done. No drama, just different paths, I wrote. They offered drinks, a chance to vent. I declined. Soon, I promised. Instead, I called James, an old college friend who had moved to the city the year before. We met for burgers and beers. We didn't talk about her. We talked about his terrible startup, the absurdity of modern marketing, the new season of that sci-fi show we both liked. It was easy. It was undramatic. It was friendship without scrutiny. I enrolled in an online certification course for a new programming framework, something I'd put off for a year, claiming I was too busy. Now my evenings had structure. Gym, study, cook. I learned to make pan-seared salmon with crisp skin. I perfected a garlic cream sauce. I ate at my kitchen island, listening to history podcasts, and the meal felt perfect because I had made it for myself. Weeks blurred into months. The season changed. The sharp, cold clarity of the betrayal softened into a simple, unremarkable fact of my past. Like a scar you forget you have. I thought of her less and less, and when I did, there was no emotion. She was a person who had made a choice. I was a person who had accepted it. The special, first hint of karma came on a rainy Tuesday. I was meeting James for coffee. He arrived late, distracted, fidgeting with his phone as he slid into the booth. Sorry, he said. Got pulled into a drama vortex. I raised an eyebrow, sipping my black coffee. Mutual acquaintance, he said carefully. He knew I had cut off everything connected to her. Apparently, Chloe's new thing is intense. I said nothing. I didn't ask. My silence left the door open, his choice to walk through it or not. He sighed. Guy named Jason, some entrepreneur, sells, like, imported flashlight batteries or something online. Drives at least a Maserati. Total vibe guy. I waited. Seems like he's her option. The one she was exploring, James continued, watching me. From what I hear, it's a roller coaster. 1 week they're in Vegas. The next, she's crying at brunch because he doesn't do labels. Her friends are exhausted. I felt a faint, distant ripple. Not shock or pleasure, something more precise. Recognition. Stable, flashy bonfire she traded her cozy fireplace for was predictably burning everything around it. It was the logical result of her search for something that wasn't sweet. Huh, I said finally. That's it, James laughed. Huh? I looked out the window at rain streaking the glass. She wanted excitement. Sounds like she found it. James shook his head, a slow smile forming. You're different, man. Am I? Yeah. The old Mark would have been worried. Would have asked 5 more questions just to make sure she was okay. The old Mark. He was right. That man had ended, politely, at a dinner table months ago. I'm not responsible for her choices, I said. It was the simplest, truest thing I'd said in a long time. I changed the subject to James's job search. The ripples settled. The water stilled. The seasons turned again. A year passed. The certification was added to my LinkedIn. My salary increased. My body changed, not into a bodybuilder's, but into something stronger, more special, capable. The silence in my apartment became a companion, not a void. Karma didn't arrive with impact. It seeped in quietly, through the cracks, carried by faint echoes of a world we once shared. I saw Mia, her best friend, at a grocery store. I turned my cart down the cereal aisle to avoid her, but she spotted me. There was a tight, worn look around her eyes. She gave a small, awkward wave. I nodded back neutral and kept moving. A month later, James mentioned that Mia and Chloe had a major falling out. They weren't speaking. The reason was Jason. The glimpses filtered through reluctant updates from mutual connections told the rest. The lavish dinners and club photos stopped. Posts became sparse, then erratic. A quote about betrayal, a blurry photo of a wine glass at home, then nothing for weeks. The final confirmation came from the most reliable source, cold, public data. One evening, waiting for code to compile, I did something I hadn't allowed myself to do before. I looked up Jason's business. It was easy to find a flashy website filled with stock images and words like disrupt and synergy. A few clicks deeper, past the surface, into state business records. His LLC had been dissolved 6 months earlier for non-payment of fees. A comment on a local business forum, dated just the previous week. Scammer. Took orders, never delivered. Avoid. So the bonfire had burned through its fuel and collapsed. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't sad. It was just a fact neutral as the weather. The option had been explored. It had been found lacking. The first direct contact came as a text. An unknown number, but the area code was familiar. It arrived on a Sunday morning. I was reading, sunlight warm on my back. Mark, it's Chloe. I know I probably shouldn't be texting you. I think I made a terrible mistake. Can we talk? The words sat on the screen. I felt nothing. No quickened pulse. No tightness in my chest. Just pixels. I saw the typing dots appear, then disappear. She was waiting. I set the phone face down. I finished my chapter. I made another cup of coffee. I watched a bird build a nest outside my window. 2 hours later, the phone buzzed again. Please. I picked it up. I didn't delete the messages. I opened the contact, created a new entry. I named it, Do Not Answer. I saved the number. Then I blocked it. The action felt clean. I wasn't ignoring her out of pain. I was filtering a distraction like spam in an inbox. Her mistake was hers to carry. My peace was mine to protect. They were no longer connected. The exploration was over, and I was no longer uncharted territory. I was my own sovereign nation, with closed borders. The voicemail came a week later. I was reviewing blueprints for a deck I planned to build on my small patio, a tangible project for a tangible life. My phone lit up with the Do Not Answer label. I let it go to voicemail. I finished measuring a joist span, then played the message on speaker while cleaning my tools. Her voice was set, unsteady, stripped of its usual polish. Mark, it's me. I know you probably hate me. I need you to know I'm sorry. I was scared and stupid and young, and I said the most horrible thing to the best person I've ever known. You were my home. I didn't know what I had until I set it on fire. Please, can you just call me back? I'm so lost. There was a wet, muffled sniffle, then the click. I saved the voicemail not as a cherished keepsake, but as a benchmark, a reminder of the tonal whiplash from smug dismissal at my parents' table to this raw desperation. It was useful data. I archived it and moved on. The friend intervention came next. Mia's name lit up my screen. I almost let it go, but curiosity cold and clinical won. Mark, she began, her voice tight with forced brightness. Hi, how are you? I'm well, Mia. What can I do for you? I kept my tone polite, detached like a bank teller. A pause. She wasn't used to me setting the tone. I'm calling about special. Chloe. I assume she's reached out? She has. She's really not doing well, Mark. Like really not well. That guy Jason, he was a nightmare. Took money from her. Lied about everything. It was all a facade. She's completely wrecked. I'm aware he was unsuccessful, I said. Another pause. My lack of emotional engagement disrupted her rhythm. Right. Well, she's hurting. She's alone. A lot of us, her friends, were just tired of the drama. You know, she needs someone stable. I waited. Look, Mia pressed, her tone sharpening. I know what she did was awful. At that dinner, God. But would it kill you to show a little compassion? To just talk to her? You were together for 2 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city lights. Mia, my compassion was spent a long time ago. I'm not responsible for the consequences of her choices. She's free to explore. Remember? That freedom includes facing the results of that exploration. That's cold. Mark. It's factual, I corrected, my voice steady. Is there anything else? She hung up. The text started that night. They pulsed through the silence of my apartment, small distress signals from a ship I was no longer on. Do not answer. Why won't you answer me? I said I was sorry. Do not answer. You were never this cruel. You've changed. Do not answer. Is this your revenge? ignoring me while I'm falling apart? I didn't block the new number. The messages were like weather reports from a storm that had already passed. I read them with detached interest. The subtext was clear. Her pain had become my responsibility. The finale came on a Thursday evening. I was chopping vegetables, the knife moving in a steady rhythm against the cutting board, when my building's buzzer rang. I ignored it. It rang again, longer, more insistent. Then a third time, rapid and frantic. I exhaled, not in annoyance, but mild inconvenience. I wiped my hands, walked to the intercom, and pressed the special button without speaking. "Mark, it's me. I know you're there. Please, I need to see you." Her voice came through the cheap speaker, strained and trembling. I said nothing. I released the button. The buzzer screamed again, long, desperate. I knew my neighbors would complain. The simplest path to preserving my peace was a brief, controlled interaction. I buzzed her in. I didn't open my apartment door fully. I stood in the frame, arms crossed a barrier. She looked diminished. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her eyes were hollow, makeup smeared. The vibrant, assessing energy was gone, replaced by restless desperation. "You won't answer my calls," she said, accusation sharp in her voice. "No," I said. "Why? How can you just shut me out, after everything?" She stepped toward me. I didn't move back, but I didn't yield an inch. She stopped. "You asked for your freedom," I said. "You have it. This," I gestured vaguely, "between us isn't my problem. Not your problem." She let out a sharp, almost hysterical laugh. "I'm hurting, Mark. The man I left you for was a con artist. He's gone. My friends are gone. I have nothing." I stayed silent, letting her words settle in the hallway. "Don't you see?" she pleaded, tears rising. "It was a mistake, a huge, stupid mistake. You were right. You were always right. Stable is good. Sweet is good. I was an idiot. I want to come home." The word home landed heavily. It meant my apartment, my life, the stability she had publicly dismissed. It wasn't an apology. It was a request for re-entry. "This isn't your home," I said, my voice low and final. Her face crumpled, then hardened. The tears vanished, replaced by a flash of familiar, frustrated entitlement. The desperation had failed. She shifted tactics. "You were never this cold. What's wrong with you?" she snapped, her voice rising. "Did I break you that badly? Is that it? You're just this empty, bitter shell now?" I said I was sorry. "What more do you want from me?" There it was, the truth beneath. Special. It all. The anger that surfaced when manipulation failed. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry it hadn't worked out. She wanted absolution, and she wanted shelter. And my refusal was a personal offense. I looked at her, this furious, unraveling stranger standing in my hallway, and felt a deep, quiet certainty. "I don't want anything from you, Chloe," I said, my tone completely flat. Not a thing. The simplicity of it deflated her. The anger drained away, leaving her small and uncertain. She opened her mouth, but no words came. "Goodbye," I said, not as a wish, but as a statement. I closed the door. I heard a muffled sob, then the sound of her footsteps retreating down the hall. I returned to my kitchen, picked up my knife, and finished dicing the onion. The tears in my eyes came from the vegetable, nothing more. Saturday morning, sunlight poured through the high glass canopy of the city's crowded farmers market. The air carried the scent of fresh bread, roasted coffee, and special, rain-washed strawberries. I held a woven basket in one hand, Sarah's hand in the other. Sarah was a landscape architect I had met through a work project. She had a calm, grounded presence and a smile that felt like something discovered, not performed. We'd been dating for 4 months. It was easy. It was quiet. It was mutual. We were discussing heirloom tomatoes versus the perfectly round ones when I felt it, a gaze. A familiar, prickling intensity. I looked up. Chloe stood about 10 feet away near a flower stall, holding a single, overpriced latte. She looked composed, but strained like a sheet pulled too tight. Her eyes locked onto me, then flicked to Sarah, then to our joined hands. A rapid calculation loss. Envy crossed her face before she suppressed it. Sarah noticed my shift and followed my gaze. "Friend of yours?" she asked, her voice even. "Someone I used to know," I said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "It's fine." But Chloe was already moving toward us. She ignored Sarah. "Special." Completely, her focus fixed on me with urgent determination. "Mark. Hi, Chloe." I nodded. An awkward pause stretched between us as the market buzzed around us, laughter, bargaining, a child's squeal. Can we just get a coffee? Talk as friends?" The words came out rehearsed, fragile. Sarah shifted slightly, examining a display of artisan honey, offering a sense of space without stepping away. Her presence remained steady, anchoring. "No," I said. The word wasn't sharp, just final, like stating a fact. Her composure began to fracture. "Why? Why are you doing this?" I said I was sorry. "I've been sorry. I miss you. I miss us." I inhaled slowly, the scent of basil and soil grounding me. I looked at her, really looked, and felt nothing but a faint, distant pity for the version of the past she was chasing. Chloe, no, I said calmly. This is Sarah, I added, gesturing lightly beside me. Sarah offered a small, polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, a quiet act of presence. We're in the middle of our day. Chloe's gaze finally shifted to Sarah, truly seeing her for the first time, the quiet confidence, the absence of need, the way she stood beside me, not leaning on me. A fresh wave of desperation washed over her. I miss you, she repeated, the words now hollow, like a script with no audience. I looked at her, and in that moment, I reached the final, complete form of moving on. I spoke the truth not to hurt her, but because it was all that remained. I don't think about you, I said. It wasn't a jab. It wasn't pride. It was simply a report from my life. I wish you well, Chloe. Truly. But please don't contact me again. I turned slightly, my body marking the end of the conversation. Then I looked at Sarah, and everything in me softened. Sweetheart, I said, warmth returning to my voice for the first time in the exchange. The bakery stall with the sourdough is this way. I think we're close. Sarah smiled, genuine and bright. Lead the way. We turned, walked, folding back into the rhythm of the market, into sunlight and the smell of bread. I didn't look back. I felt Sarah's hand tighten gently around mine, a silent question. It's okay, I said, meaning it completely. It's all okay. I felt Chloe's gaze linger on my back for a few seconds of fading weight, then it was gone, dissolved into the noise and life of the morning. There was no triumph, no lingering pain, only the steady, tangible reality of Sarah's hand in mine, the basket at my side, and the quiet understanding that the past was finally and fully just that, a closed chapter in a book I was no longer reading. I was free, and I had been for a long time. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments.